single member LLC is one owner means one human being in the mix. And that makes things a lot easier. So I always start off with that. When clients don't have a legal entity, we talk through the importance of having a legal entity in order to protect personal assets. And we go through an education process during the consultation to explain the legal entity is now an individual. You have to treat it like its own being, just like the client, the member, the owner of that legal entity. A lot of people don't understand that once they get the legal entity set up, the LLC set up, that they have to maintain it. And if you don't maintain it and you get sued, having the legal entity will not provide you the protection that you're expecting to happen. The biggest and most common mistake I hear a lot is that a single member LLC is good once we get it set up with the state. There's more to it, and that's where we have put together a package that really helps the client understand what their obligations are for maintenance, and it's documentation. And so we provide the documents that they need, and we show them how to continually use those documents. They're created as a template that is specific to that client with content control fields. I try to make it as easy as possible because as business owners, we get busy. That becomes not the priority, to constantly document certain business decisions that affect the operations. But when you are named in a lawsuit, all of those pieces of documentation, and it's a consent form that is incorporated with an operating agreement, that all becomes vital, because then you're going to pull all of that documentation out to prove to the court that you've been operating as a real business. And that is the evidence we use to separate the entity from the individual owners. That's the boundary line. And you may never need it, but we want you to have it in case you do. And it's also going to be important if you're audited. And so documentation is critical. It's a pain, I get that. And when I get clients that are serial entrepreneurs, meaning they just have so many things going on and they keep setting up different companies, that's what we do. We help you organize it so it's not such a pain. It's complicated to set up more than one legal entity and to maintain them. And I think that there are ways to make it less complicated and easier on the owner so that you actually follow through on what you're supposed to do. And if you continue to make things more complicated than they need to be, you make mistakes. Mistakes happen, and that's when you find yourself where you're not protected or you're in a legal mess because you avoided handling certain things the right way. You know ahead of time. You don't hire us until you understand what the fees are and you can plan. And I love it this way because especially entrepreneurs who want to set up multiple companies. There's a lot of planning that can go into this to make it work with your CPA so the tax benefits are set up correctly. If you know ahead of time how much the legal fees are, it just makes it easier for you to plan. And so taking that out of it, and there's no question later and you're not going to get a bill in the mail wondering how much time I spent on the project and how much it's going to cost, taking that out of it has just been extremely valuable for clients to know exactly how much things cost. We can help you deal with those tricky things that may come up. I've had to rewrite several operating agreements that were purchased from an online source. You can order a single member LLC, a multi-member LLC. If you already have your LLC set up, we offer a maintenance package, because sometimes when you get your LLC set up, you don't have the operating agreement or the consent forms. The same with a S Corp. You don't have the bylaws and the shareholders agreement, and there's several documents that need to be actually completed every year for an S Corp. And so we have a package that's an S Corp maintenance package or an LLC maintenance package that gives you all of that. And then we've also put together an LLC owner's manual as well as an S Corp owner's manual. So if I get a client who owns multiple entities, we offer now a legal entity audit, because what I have found is that sometimes people keep setting up different entities over years, and they have no idea if they have the right documentation. They have no idea if the records with the state are accurate, if they accurately reflect who the principals of the business are, who the officers are, the addresses, the articles of incorporation or articles of organization are not up to date. So we provide an audit and we go through every single legal entity and we point out what's good and what is a weakness. And it is a great report that they can get and really see how they could be doing things better and what they need to fix to make sure that they're tight. Because if they're sued and there are holes that can be poked at, that's when their personal assets become at risk. So we want to do whatever we can to try and help them see how they can make it stronger so that no holes can be poked. We review every documentation very carefully and put it together in a report for them. If you own more than one legal entity, and you may not today, but in 5 or 10 years, it's amazing how quickly time flies and you've set up different entities and you have no idea. I get a lot of clients who call me, they want to set up a contract, but I always take the conversation back. Let's talk about your legal entity. And I want to point this out because there's no point in hiring us to produce a great contract for you if your legal entity is at risk. It always is going to go back to the legal entity. And so we want to make sure that you've maintained it and you've got it set up right.